All right, Charlie Romo. And we'll be seeing a little more of him later on. We're going to sit down and talk to him. But for my very special guest tonight, as I said, he's the founder and he's the CEO of the Guardian Angels. He's the host of his own talk show on 77 WABC, Rip and Read. We got the one and only Curtis Sliwa in the studio. Yeah. My man Curtis. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming down. But before we start this interview, it's finally great to have someone on the show that got arrested more times than me.
And plus, I'm going to get arrested a hell of a lot more until we run these illegal aliens out of our city.
Amen. Now, listen, before we start this, and we're going to go on, and everyone's going to love it. It's an entertainment variety show, and politics really wasn't my game until a couple of years ago, until everything started changing. And I love what you do, and it takes guys like you to really step up to the plate and and stand up for us and do whatever it takes to save our city. So I'm here right now. You were born in Canarsie, Brooklyn, right? Polish and Italian.
Yes.
Why don't you talk about how it was back in the old days and into where you are today?
Well, first off, you know why I schlepped out here.
Frank Morano?
That Mama Luke. No. Oh, you're the kingmaker. I remember watching you with a young kid named Pete Davidson when nobody knew who the hell this guy was.
I'm glad you're saying something. Yeah, no kidding.
You gave him his start.
Yeah.
But he's left.
Yeah.
He's out in Beverly Hills.
I don't even get a candy bar.
So you don't have a king of Staten Island anymore.
No.
Well, guess what? You got a new king of Staten Island.
Yeah. But you know what's funny? And it's no big deal, but I won the King of Staten Island award at the Country Club in 2018. 2 years later, they came out with the King of Staten Island 2020. But, I mean, listen, Pete Davidson, God bless him and all his success. But you don't forget where you came from. You didn't forget where you came from.
No.
And it's the people that make you, right?
Exactly. My grandfather, Fidel Bianchino, he would say to me, Wanyam, if the fig tree dies, we move. And he did everything to make sure that fig tree didn't die. He took tar paper. He surrounded it. He took mattresses. He'd be watching Carol Reed on the old Channel 2 News, the weather woman, for Arnold Brick Oven Bread. And she'd say, it's going to be 26 degrees tonight. He'd be out there with the barrel. He'd be lighting fires. Yeah. He'd be making sure that fig tree didn't die. In the spring, I'd be looking. He said, Wanyam, we're not moving. The figs are alive. We improve, we don't move.
That's great. I love it.
Look, that's the old style Italian way.
Oh.
Everybody else runs, they don't run.
No, exactly. And that's what the good thing about the Italians. We say what we feel, and we do what we mean, and then that's it. So as time went on, you know, you were a night manager in McDonald's, correct?
In Mickey D's, and of all places, the Bronx.
And how old were you?
At that time, I got kicked out of high school, Brooklyn Prep. The Jesuits shined their boots on my backside, and I never looked back.
That's crazy.
I was packing out shelves for AMP, pumping gas, and I had this idea that maybe I should get some young men, young women to patrol the streets of Brooklyn, the subways of Brooklyn. And people said, you're crazy, you're bots. Mm-hmm. All the furniture's upstairs rearranged in the wrong rooms. So I had to go into exile, like Napoleon went to the island of Elba. I said, where could I go where people wouldn't think I'm a nut job?
Yeah.
The Bronx, it was all burning down, right?
Oh, tell me about it.
Everybody was leaving.
I'm sorry.
So I went up there, and not only was I making Max fries and strawberry shakes, but I came up with this idea, and people said, well, let's give it a try, because nothing's working. And that's how I began the Guardian Angel.
And that was the Magnificent 13, but first, right?
Magnificent 13, but really was the Burger Boys.
Oh, yeah?
These were all guys and gals who worked for me, and I would tell them afterwards, because they thought you were insane to be going out there against the Uzi-toting, dope-sucking, psychopathic killing machines with no weapons, no bulletproof vests. So I said, guess what? Ray Kroc doesn't know this, but he's going to give you extra overtime. I'm not punching you out until the patrol is finished. So we started as the Burger Boys, then the Magnificent 13, and now 13 countries, 130 cities, 5,000
That's
members.
excellent.
The Guardian Angel.
And your beret is part of your trademark with the Guardian Angels, correct? And is it true they're selling them in other places of the world?
Yeah, Gucci. Gucci did a brand of the Guardian Angel beret. You know, the fashionistas, the trendoids, the jet setters. You know what the Guardian Angels got for that? Ugats.
Yeah.
We got bupkis. Gucci got everything. I got belly button lint for the Guardian Angels.
We should hook them up with Pete Davidson.
Oh, that's right, Pete. Hey, he's with all the trendoids, jet setters, and freakazoids now.
God bless him. But listen.
Hey, you know what you remind me of? One of my first TV appearances. First was Romper Room. That's when I became lens lice. I was hopelessly addicted, right? Do be, don't be. My second appearance was with Joe Franklin.
Oh, okay. Love Joe Franklin.
I'm telling you, you are the second coming of Joe Franklin.
I hope so. Thank you.
That is a tremendous compliment because he was the absolute best.
And that's in my questions for you that I was going to say. I know Joe was very fond of you.
Yeah.
And how did you guys meet?
He actually met through my sister, Alita St. James, who was a director. She directed Danny Aiello in Championship Season. Very good. She was in Hair. So, you know, let's face it, Joe Franklin promoted people who are in the artsy-fartsy world of drama, television, movie production. Mm-hmm. And he took a liking to my sister, and my sister said, you got to meet my baby brother. He's cleaning up the city of New York. At that time, it was keep the Bronx clean, keep New York City clean.
Yeah.
He put me on his show, and I was hopelessly addicted for life. And I got to tell you, he was the greatest impresario of all time.
No, he
Joe
definitely
Franklin.
was. You're lucky you and Frank, but you guys got to know him a lot longer than me. I got to know him about the last 4 years of his life, but he definitely left an impression on me. And I learned whatever I learned from him, and through his books. When I read his books, I hear his voice. And,
and my mentor in radio, the king of talk radio, Bob Grant.
Okay.
Absolutely the best.
Yeah.
You know, when I first was at WABC, the suits, the mockers, the muckety mucks, they said, what is this guy saying? We can't even understand what this guy is saying. And Bob Grant, who was the king of talk radio, said, hey, this guy knows where all the bones are buried and who buried them. You need Curtis Sliwa on WABC. Ironically, 35 years later, what does WABC stand for? Always Broadcasting Curtis. Due to my mentor, the king of talk radio, Bob Grant, I would never have had an opportunity in talk radio.
Listen, I've been listening to you a lot lately. You're hilarious, but you say it is, and I love. You're a lot like me. Where you have nicknames for everybody, and you have a nickname for everybody. It's great.
When Mario Faccia Brutta Cuomo was alive, like his son Andrew Evil Eyes Cuomo. Andrew, ascendeme, tu si provienos facim, and like your father Mario, you are. That directly came from Bob Grant. There are some people who want to have a nickname. If you don't give them a nickname, they're upset.
Yeah.
And then there are other people, if they had a gun, they would unload it into me and then reload and shoot me again. This thing you do, this thing we do on radio, it's theater of the mind. Stop taking it so seriously. Everybody is having coronaries, heart attacks.
And you're right.
You know, they're not having fun. They don't understand that this is like words paint pictures, and pictures tell stories. And I grew up with the two greatest men in my life. My grandfather, Videla Bianchino, on my body's side, my mother's side, Francesca, and my father, Chester, merchant seaman, 54 years, constantly sailing in and out of Arthur Kill, Van Cull, the tank farms, tankers, cargo container ships. And they would tell stories. And they would tell me early on, why are you talking? You know nothing. Listen and you will learn.
Exactly.
Nowadays, I see my three sons, right? So, well, how could you talk? You don't know anything yet other than video games. If you listen, you will learn. And the elderly carry with them stories that have lasted centuries. And I view my role on radio as telling stories.
Yeah.
That's how you learn. Not just repeating the same old political points over and over, to the point where you just want to turn the radio off?
No, 100%. I mean, that's what keeps it interesting, especially for radio, because radio, if people get unfocused, they're gonna fall asleep, as you said. You're very entertaining, and that's what I like about your show. But you're very smart and educated when it comes to politics.
You listen to me and Frank Morano, and that's your news? Oh, boy. I hope you have a few more avenues of news gathering than from Frank the Mama Luke Morano and Curtis Sliwa.
Oh, you can't call Frank the Mama Luke.
He's a Mama Luke. Come on, you know that.
He's a good kid.
Every Italian boy is a little prince. They never want to leave home. At 45 years old, their mother is still making them pasta bazzol, making their bed, and ironing their BVDs. They'll never find a woman who can equal Mama.
Oh, my mother threw me out. She screamed, "Oh, you gotta get out! You're out!" And that was it. Now, before we get further, give me the one fondest memory you have with Joe Franklin, because I always love hearing a Joe Franklin story.
Clutter.
Yeah.
I went over to his office. Frank Morano took me to his office. I have clutter. I have that disease.
Yeah,
it's in my father.
Me too.
My father, Leonard, my uncle, Smitty, Ernie, my grandfather, Anton, clutter everywhere. And when I walked into his office, there were mounds of clutter.
Yeah.
And Frank said, watch, I'm going to ask him to get a particular piece from 1936. Watch. He didn't give him any hint. He said, Joe, can you show Curtis this show bill from 1936? He goes like this. He puts his arm in a huge pile, and he comes out, and there it is.
Yeah.
The biggest pile of clutter, and he knew where everything else. I marveled at that.
All over.
I mean, the best.
When I wanted one of his books, he goes, I got a couple around here. I go, I see one right there. Let me get it. He goes, no, don't touch that. And it was like, there was like a big, if I would have pulled it out.
Everything would have collapsed, like the Colliers brothers. Do you know at the old WABC, they actually brought a clutter expert because an intern went inside to get something and piles of my newspapers collapsed on the poor kid and he almost died.
Get out of here.
And they had to make me feel each and every newspaper before we would put it in the recycling bin. And the woman, the expert, would say, you're shaking. What are you shaking for, Curtis? I didn't finish reading that newspaper. She goes, that's from 5 years ago. But look, this is where I stopped on page 8.
That's hilarious.
You see, that's in my genetic patterns.
That's great. Before we move on, there's something I don't know a lot of people don't know. When Curtis was a young lad and he was a newspaper delivery boy, he actually saved several people out of a burning building. Would you like to tell us about that story?
Yeah, I was delivering the New York Daily News, 168 dailies, 182 on Sundays.
Wow.
And every Friday, every gavone out there would stiff me when I go around and collect. I'll get you next week, kid.
I hate that
I'll
shit.
double the tip. At the end of the month, you'll be in 7th heaven. I'd have to hide in the bushes to wait till came home half in the bag before they would throw me a few dollars. That was the toughest part of the job. But one morning, I was there with my dog who would help me deliver the papers in the morning, and there was a fire down the block. I didn't know it was a fire because it seemed like somebody was banging on the door. These are all wood buildings at the time. And I saw smoke rising up from the roof. And it was in the winter when we had real winters, you know, like 20 foot of snow, you know, not now where we wait for 2 snowflakes. And I remember I went up to the door. I heard pounding, so I thought people were trying to get out. The door blew off the hinges because the air expanded, knocked me down. My dog ran all the way home underneath the kitchen table. I crawled inside, and I started to pulling people out. So my dad, again, a merchant mariner for 54 years, and on an oil tanker, told me, son, if there's ever a fire, don't try to walk in there. The smoke will knock you out. You'll die from the smoke, not the fire. Crawl on your belly. So my father was able, I was almost like listening to my dad. I was able to save 5 people.
How old were you?
I was 16.
Wow. And then you won an award for the Newsboy of the Year, right?
Oh, they took me to Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Oh, Madonna, my big thing. There's Richard Nixon. I shook his hands. It was the coldest, wettest, clammiest shake of a hand I ever had. And then they don't let you talk. So I asked them one question. I thought you were going to get us out of the Vietnam War. All of a sudden, they said, what are you asking questions for? They hustled me out. The poor guy from the Daily News, who was my chaperone, that brought me there on Eastern Airlines, the shuttle, on the way back, he's saying, I'm going to lose my mortgage. You know what you did to me, Curtis? I was persona non grata. And then they did big, huge profiles of me to try to encourage other young men to deliver newspapers. Nowadays, they won't let kids deliver newspapers, not even the penny saver.
No, it's pathetic.
It's a lost art. It was really an art to be able to ride, no hands, on a big, cheap Schwinn bicycle with the basket in front. Rubber band it, toss it at the same time. And coupon day, Wednesday, the old ladies were outside waiting with the scissors. If you didn't get that paper there by 4:30, it was a hell of a price to pay. It taught you discipline.
Yeah. When we lived in Brooklyn, I know I shouldn't say it, but who cares? We used to rob the bundles of the papers that were on the corner, and then we would sell them.
Oh.
Right in front of Kelly Park in Midwood.
You know when they did that in Howard Beach? After the Gottis and the Gambinos shot me 5 times, they stole every newspaper there, said, we got that. We got that.
I can't believe they did that to you.
What do you mean you can't believe? The way I talk, you can't believe that they would film me full of 5 hollow point bullets?
How could they not love you?
And by the way, you know, my very dear friend, Frank Morano, the Mamaluke, he loves the Gottis and Gambinos. The people who tried to kill me. I was at his wedding here on Staten Island. I thought I'd be the best man, right? Yeah, John Gotti Jr. as his best man.
No.
Yeah, the Gambinos and the Gottis there. I'm there with my wife, and the guy Gotti Jr. is going to get up and ask to dance with my wife.
Hey, Frank,
that would have set it off.
Frank, you didn't tell me that.
I should have been his best man.
In heart, you are. Now, listen, as time went on, you got into radio in the early 90s, and then what gave you that bug?
Oh, I listened to talk radio as a kid. You see, when I was growing up in the 60s, they just developed freeform radio. Allison Steele, the Nightbird, WNEW, you know, where they would play a whole album. So all the young guys and gals would listen to FM.
Yeah.
FM stands for freaking morons, feeble-minded, fornicating madly, free marijuana, and Frank Morano.
Yeah.
So I would be listening to the old WMCA, which was the big talk radio station at that time. Bob Grant was on in the afternoons. Barry Gray mid-morning. He was great. John Sterling was the Bob Grant of sports talk radio, screaming his lungs out at little kids who said, did you ever think that the Yankees would trade Mickey Mantle? You know, I was thinking maybe Mickey Mantle for Willie Mays. Hey, get off my phone, kid, you jerk. Boom. That was Mr. I love talk radio. I couldn't get enough. Barry Farber overnight, you know, we talk about 2 scorpions in a brandy glass with that North Carolina draw. It was the best. And again, it stimulated me, theater of the mind. And then Long John Neville and Candy Jones. Long John Neville was the best salesperson, pitchman ever. He could, sell you anything. He had us all convinced that his wife, Candy Jones, was a CIA agent. I remember listening. He had a guy on who wrote a book who said that he dug his way from Bayonne, New Jersey, the gateway to the world, to, at the time, Peking, not Beijing, Peking, Red China. And this Long John Neville saying, that's very conceivable. I could see how you could do that. That's great talk radio.
That's awesome. How did it go in time that you and Frank Morano actually hooked up? How did that happen?
Well, Frank Morano was an intern from NYU. You know, he was trying to be a violet. His poor family having to work 2 jobs just to make ends meet to pay $55,000 a year, no frills, for an NYU education. Save your money. Look at Frank Morano.
Poor guy.
He interned at WABC. He became a morning producer for Curtis and Ron Kuby, whose mommy is a commie.
Yeah.
Now, you talk about volatility. Me and Ron Kuby. And then Frank hit his prime, because John Gotti Jr. and the Gambino crime family were on trial for attempting to murder me.
Yeah.
And Frank was assigned to go down to the trial every day and cover it. He was great reporting on that trial every day. The whole city was paying attention to what went on.
Wow. That's a cool story. And then as time went on, you guys became buds, right?
No, we didn't become buddies because, remember, every student tries to take out the teacher. And I knew with eyes in the back of my head that this guy was trying to take me out. That one day he would want to be the king of talk radio. First it was Bob Grant, it was Curtis Sliwa, and it would be Frank Morano. Not in a month of Sundays, Frank. He's good, but you're not that good yet.
You two guys are 2 different classes in 2 different schools.
Yes.
You know, you're great at what you do. He's great at what he does. I can see both of you guys doing a show eventually one day. But that would be very interesting. Now, with you running for mayor, the rumor has it you're going to be coming back in 2025, right? Yeah.
I mean, you think this piece of work, this Eric Adams, swagger man with no plan, mayor of the illegal aliens, is doing a good job? Look, Eric Adams is my best friend because he's going to be my best campaign manager. Every time I mention Eric Adams, people are going to say, yeah, I should have voted for you. And then I tell people, oh, you should have voted for me. Now you got to suffer for another 2 years. Then you get a chance to make up for your mistake and let me save the city. You should have let me do it before.
Yeah. That's when I decided and said I have to speak my piece to a point where I'm not going to be getting too heavily into the politics. But with all the stuff that I totally agree with starting, where do you think it's at now? Like the funding of the police. Where do you see that going right now?
Unfortunately, it's continuing.
Yeah.
But to Staten Island's credit, when all hell broke loose in the summer of 2020, the summer of George Floyd, remember, you'd have demonstrations with Black Lives Matter that has become big, large mansions as a result of white people's generosity. Please don't hurt us. Oh, I love Black Lives Matter. Please, here, take my money, take my money. And now they're big, large mansions. It's a new real estate agency and Antifa. And when they were attacking the police and firebombing them, and I calling them the worst words and putting up graffiti, and that Comrade Bill de Blasio, that part-time mayor, that dope from Park Slope, right, with his wife Charlene, who was smoking Maui Wowie and Hindu Kush, doing puff puff pass on the back porch of Gracie Mansion, abandoned our city, abandoned the police. The only borough to stand up for the police, where Blue Lives Matter was created, is right here on Staten Island, which is the most patriotic borough, the most pro-police borough, where Black Lives Matter and Antifa are not welcome.
It's crazy. It really is. Never in a million years that I thought the city would turn the way it is. I mean, from back in the day in the 70s, late 70s, I know it was a lot of crime going on.
Yeah.
What's the difference between then and now? I know two different.
The biggest difference now is we have a lot of emotionally disturbed persons.
Yes.
Who at any moment can be triggered off.
Of course.
These, as my father raised me when I was very young, he'd take me to the Bowery, where there were a lot of former seamen that he knew. Also over to Sag Harbor, which used to be the home for the seamen before they shipped out to North Carolina. All the merchant seamen, that was their retirement home. And he would tell me when there were men who were disheveled or looked like they had lost control of their mental faculties, he said, Curtis, there by the grace of God go you. He would touch them. He would hold them. He would hug them. Now, many of them had defecated on themselves, urinated on themselves. They were in need. These are lost souls. And that stuck with me.
Of course.
That's the difference. It's all these men and women who are roaming about, who need to get mental health care. And we have empty psychiatric hospitals. Instead, what do? We bring illegal aliens in and put them in tents. How about taking care of our Americans first, our veterans, our homeless, our emotionally disturbed, the lost souls? That's God's work. Take care of your own first before you start taking care of everybody else.
100%. And let me say this. You know, we were all immigrants, our grandparents, their parents, you know. But when we came into the system, they had to get legalized. They had to learn English. They had to get jobs. No one was giving nobody nothing. Anything they got from hard work. Our taxpayers' dollars are going to all these free housing, the phones, the food. And then when someone who's been living in America all their lives, or even part-time their life, they can't even get any of these benefits for their family.
I'll tell you a great story. My grandfather and grandmother, Fidela Bianchino, couldn't read or write. Nicoletta was the educated one. So Nicoletta is writing letters to Fidel's cousin, who's La Mesta, who owned a funeral parlor in East New York, Brooklyn, on Liberty Avenue. We have 4 children. We'd like to come over. We need a sponsor. Would you be willing to sponsor? La Mesta wrote back, and back then it took months, for a letter Absolutely. You bring your 4 children over. My very dear cousin Fidel, I remember fondly when we were young people. So they show up at Ellis Island. She now has 12 children.
Wow.
My mother, Francesca, the last drop, the 13th, she's pregnant. There's La Mesta on the other side, my grandfather Fidel waving at him. Hey, La Mesta, La Mesta. La Mesta says to the immigration guy, who is this man? I never saw him before in my life. Because he wasn't going to take responsibility for 13 kids. And so they were ready to ship them all back. Luckily, another relative from Brooklyn was able to find out that they were housed on Ellis Island. One of them, Leonard, my uncle, they shipped back. He had a mastoid ear infection. He was housed on Bay Street, the old Merchant Mariners Hospital. That's where they would send the immigrants if they were sick and they couldn't cure them. If they couldn't cure you, they shipped you back. They broke up your family. I never met my Uncle Leonard. Yeah. He died in Andria, in Bari, Italy. They separated the family, but the family had to continue and come to America and live their dreams, the greatest country in the world.
That's crazy, right? The other thing that is very disturbing with the war vets and the senior citizens and throw them out of their home and put in the migrants in. I mean, listen, you want to put them somewhere, but you don't throw, especially a war veteran. I mean, that's a disgrace, and it makes us look weak.
Are we out of our minds? Yes, we are. And I blame both the Democrats and Republicans because they've been futzying around with this since 1980. They've never come up with a comprehensive immigration program. So politicians, Republicans, and Democrats, I don't let them speak at our rallies because they're rally killers. They just talk endlessly. They're kya-kya-rounds. People talk because I believe in people. I trust the people. I don't trust any politicians.
Oh, that's crazy. I just wish everybody could just get along. I mean, but it's never going to happen.
Wait. You just hope everybody gets along, right? Rodney King. What are you, Rodney King of Staten Island here?
Trying to save my ass.
Wait, North Shore doesn't get along with South Shore.
No,
well, start working on that.
You know that. I'm a South Shore guy.
Never. As soon as I say to somebody on the South Shore, hey, you want to come with me to the North Shore? No, I don't travel to the North Shore. Can you come to a Mid-Island? Well, maybe, Forest Avenue, but that's about as far as I go.
Yeah, the sticks. Unbelievable. So what do you see everything going now? I mean, what should us New Yorkers do or keep doing?
Well, what we got to stop is the evacuation.
Yeah.
So many of our friends and relatives, if given the chance to leave, are leaving. And not just Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Texas, Tennessee, parts unknown. If the interest rates weren't 7.5% now, there'd be more houses for sale. Who's going to show up at your house with a bag full of money to say, hey, forget the third party, forget the bank, forget the mortgage.
Yeah.
So we got to improve and not move. And we've got to take control of what's going on in our lives, not moan and groan that the politicians aren't doing their job. When have they ever done their job? Come on, it's the people who raised you, your mother and father, your grandparents. Those are your role models. They're the people who gave you the glue that kept your life together. Whenever I'm in trouble, and boy, I've taken a lot of wrong turns, I always think, what did my mother and father and my grandparents tell me to do? And I learn from what they're my mentors. They're my role models. I don't need sports stars. I don't need movie stars. I don't need politicians. I got the fabric of what makes Americans great. La familia, your family.
100%.
Stick to your family
100%.
tradition.
Family, friends, everything. Now, listen, that's almost your time. Why don't you talk to us about, because we know you have a big, you and your wife got the big animal rescue program, and then you got, 14, 16 cats? How many?
18.
Now 18,
feral
okay.
cats. All of them that my wife Nancy rescued before they were going to be executed in the shelter. Before I came into your palazzo here, your studio, it's like MGM out here.
Yeah, I wish.
There were all, you have a colony of feral cats out there. They actually came out to the gate. Before it opened up, and then I had to be searched, right, and wanded and everything. What, you got guys out here that whack you?
No.
But anyway, the point being is I saw at least 6 feral cats out there, all in this area.
There's a lot of cats.
Feral cats keep rats away. This mayor of ours who wears the $5,000 schmata suits, all silk, right, and parties till the break of dawn. I wanted to be his rat czar.
Yeah.
Very simple. I didn't ask for any money. I'm nocturnal, rats are nocturnal, and cats are nocturnal. If you have outdoor cats, you won't have rats. Very simple. And it won't cost you taxpayers money. But the mayor, the Weisenheimer that he is, I don't need you as my rat czar. He got hit with another ticket last week. Another ticket. Trust me, if there's one thing I know about growing up, it's two-legged rats, like Sammy the Bull Gravano, who ate the Parmesan cheese, and four-legged rats. Leave it to me, and I'll get rid of both.
Now, that's great. Before we wrap this up, when did you start Rip and Read? How long has that been on the air for?
Rip and Read is when I came back from the campaign. John Catsimatidis, the greatest radio owner in the world, who lets me say whatever's on my mind. You got to understand, when I'm there and I'm attacking our elected officials, Republican and Democrat, business people, and I'm accusing them of the worst crimes, his phone is singing and ringing. Fire him, suspend him, get him to go down on Wounded Knee. And all John says to them is, when he's wrong, let me know, because so far he's been right. But John has told me, if you're wrong, that's it. Get a job hanging wallpaper. I said, I understand the deal. But I had to sell John on Rip and Read. I've been in the business of talk radio for 35 years. So I said, I don't like this guy that you had, a person of no consequence, 12-1. I said, I can do it. He goes, well, you're going to have to try out. That's when you realize you have to take your humongous ego and put it outside. And I had to compete against 6 other people to do Rip and Read. And at the end of about a 3-month trial period, I got the hour to do. But let me tell you something. That's a wake-up call. Nobody is a person that has to be there. For instance, let's say tomorrow I got fired. Oh, I'll never listen to WABC again, right? The next week, the new guy is on. Hey, you know, Millie, that guy sounded pretty good. A month from now, Curtis, who? That's the way life is, like Kevin McCarthy. Oh, Kevin McCarthy's no longer the speaker. Meantime, Scalise is already saying, I'll run. In another week, you'll have a new speaker. In another month, you'll say, Kevin, who? It's the way life is. Understand, we're all replaceable.
It's a shame.
Nobody is an untouchable in this life. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. You could be a billionaire. You come in with nothing, and you leave with nothing other than your honor, your dignity, your pride, and your family name.
And he said it all. Well, Curtis, where can people find you on social media?
So whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Twitter, you name it, I'm there. I'm Len Slice. You're going to get more Curtis Sliwa than you ever thought that you have in your life. And when I announce officially, I expect all of you to come out. And I know a lot of you guys voted for Eric Adams. I know you go, oh, no. Oh,
no, I didn't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right, yeah. Everybody said they voted for me. Every person I meet, oh, I voted for you.
Of course they did.
If that was the case, I would have been mayor of the city of New York.
It's crazy.
Now, to the credit, Staten Island voted for me overwhelmingly. Can I call myself the mayor of Staten Island?
Yes. Well, it sounds like you're a man with a plan, and it seems like you just started, Curtis. You know, God bless you. We need more guys like you, and I hope you come back to the show. Everybody, Curtis Sliwa.
Thanks.
Yeah. Curtis Sliwa. He said it all.